Hi, it's Bumble. Welcome back to my channel. So this is kind of my review for Alien Earth for episode 2. It's called Mr. October. I don't have as many notes. This episode was shorter than the first one because, they don't have to introduce everything. I still don't really know how I feel about it. I feel kind of mixed, where all the stuff with the actual different aliens is really cool, and then everything else I kind of don't really care about, and I'm just so used to this series in a movie format where the plot, it continues. They're locked in one place, you have your set amount of characters, and that's kind of it. And then with this one, it's multiple plot lines and things happening, and they're not really in danger all the time, so it just kind of throws me off a bit. I kind of forgot to take notes throughout most of the episode. I think it was an hour. I started taking notes halfway in, so I'll just talk about things that I remembered. We get to see Miss Yutani, which is cool. I don't know if it was Miss or Mrs. I think they refer to her as Miss. And I get kind of confused of where in the time. I'm so focused on that for the other movies because it helps me keep track of what's going on. Because it's I thought this one was supposed to take place 2 years before the original Alien movie, where at that point the company's referred to as Weyland-Yutani, but we never hear anything about Weyland. I thought it was referred to as the Weyland-Yutani company here too. It might just be Yutani. But we actually do get to see Miss Yutani. And I was thinking wouldn't the company already be combined by this point? And then I don't know, in terms of some of the other stuff, I don't think we ever really see her in the other Alien movies I've watched from what I can remember. But I am currently watching the Predator movies. I had just finished watching both the Alien versus Predator movies at the time I'm recording this. I finished watching them last week. And it's weird with those two, where she seems to be in charge of the Predator stuff, but then in the first Alien versus Predator, Weyland the guy is there. So things just keep confusing me with this series. I keep wanting to try to fit okay, where do things fit and whatever, or how consistent are things supposed to be? Because the hybrid main characters in this episode, the big thing is they do go onto the crashed ship, where there's different kinds of aliens now, not just xenomorphs, which is really cool. I want to talk about that in a bit. But then some of them are targeted and some of them aren't. There's this weird eyeball creature and it attacks one of the characters, but then there's a xenomorph we see later on, and it targets specifically the only human person in the room, and it's only seeming to target humans, because it seems sometimes synthetics are completely immune to xenomorph stuff, and other times they're not, so it gets kind of confusing. That's what made me kind of with this series when I first saw the trailers and stuff. Besides it taking place on Earth, which it kind of doesn't. I mean, okay, the crash ship is on Earth, but every time we see any of the aliens, it's the ones that are still in there, so they're still technically contained. You're still getting the okay, you're claustrophobic and trapped with these creatures and stuff, which are my favorite parts with the show. They're done really well. You feel the horror vibes. I really like the creature designs, but I'll get to that in a bit. And then there's a lot more focus. I think his name is Boy Cadaver, the trillionaire guy that's in charge of the Prodigy company and is the one that's turning these kids into hybrids and stuff. I still don't like him. I don't know if he's gonna be one of those characters that you're supposed to eventually later, or if he's just kind of a bit sneaky. Because he has this conversation with one of the people that works for him, the scientist lady that's always talking to kids. I don't remember what her name is, and he says about wanting to talk to someone that's smarter than him, and that would be amazing. And he's saying that in front of somebody, and she gets offended, and he's like, no, you're smart, but I need someone smarter. And it's like, do you even know what you're saying right now? Because it's not like he works with people that are stupid either. Like, these are people that are doing all of the science stuff to like transfer these kids into robot bodies, you know. They have to be like really smart people, and I guess none of his workers are good enough for him. So that's just kind of weird. I feel like that's kind of his role with like the hybrid kids are also really weird. Like, I've noticed he kind of favors Wendy more than the other kids, and she's supposed to be like the special one or something, where she's like given access to cameras and stuff, so she spies on her brother. But then she ends up getting abilities that like the other ones don't have, that weren't like programmed into her, where she can manipulate like technology now, like cameras and stuff. Which, I mean, okay, I guess that makes sense. They're synths, they have like supercomputer brains and whatever, but then they're able to do things now they're not like programmed to do. I don't know. It's kind of interesting actually having like synthetic protagonists, where we normally it's just, you know, like a bunch of humans, and then here's their like synthetic science officer or whatever, but we're finally getting kind of like that POV of what their, you know, experiences are like and stuff. It's interesting actually. But yeah, the trillionaire guy creeps me out. He doesn't really take things seriously. In a way, he almost behaves like a child too. Like, I was kind of figuring like thematic wise what his theming was. It didn't hit me immediately, even though it totally should have, because it's like the main character's Wendy, and then the other kids are like the Lost Boys, and that they're like mentally younger than her and stuff, and it's like very obvious at all. I think that's why I like them more than Wendy. Wendy doesn't really act like a child. She kind of acts more like an adult, but not really. I'm not trying to say like, oh, like a teenager or whatever. I don't know. She's like 12. You're like still a kid at that point though. Like, I remember when I was 12, I was still kind of doing dumb stuff and whatever. I don't know. I think she just weirds me out, and it makes it hard to like her as a protagonist. But then the other kids, they're, you know, they're actually kind of funny, and they react pretty much like how I'd expect them to react. Like, mentally, they don't seem to react to things like synthetics or whatever. They have like very human responses and stuff, so it's kind of a bit weird. They act so different from Wendy, even though I know there's like the age gap and whatever, but I feel like it's very different responses of like, oh, how would you react if you got put into a robot and whatever, or like to the creatures and stuff. Because I was saying in the last one, like, oh, that's weird, they're gonna have like kids fight aliens, and of course they react like the way you'd expect them to, of being like grossed out or being like, what's that thing that we're looking at or whatever. And the only reason their mission gets done is there's this white-haired synth guy who I also feel is kind of there's like at least 3 characters in this so far I feel like are kind of sus, or I don't really know what their goals are. I don't remember his name either. I didn't even realize he was a synth at first until he started talking about, he's always comparing like humanity to animals and stuff, like talking about how humans are like kind of worthless, and he treats the children like they're synthetics, like as if they've been synthetics their whole life rather than hybrids. I mean, I know they're not like technically human now, but they still have like their memories and stuff, and still act in like a very childlike way, you know? What else? But yeah, he kind of bosses them around in this mission, but I get it. He's actually trying to like, you know, make sure none of the like specimens aren't you know, trying to get out. Obviously they would end up attacking people and whatever, so I get it. He has to be like keeping everything going so these kids aren't like running around and whatever. What else? And we get to really see more of the like creature designs, which I think are really cool. There's like this eyeball creature. It kind of grosses me out a little bit because it's this eyeball and it kind of climbs around like this spider with its like legs, but they're not legs, they're like the parts of the eye. There's this one part where it attacks one of the characters and it jumps on her face exactly kind of like how a face hugger would, but it's like trying to put its legs into her face rather than like hugging the face like how the face huggers do. It's kind of interesting. And when it's introduced, it's actually inside of a cat. Like there's this little cat on the floor and you don't see it turn its head all the way, and I thought like, oh, this thing's cute, why is there a cat in here? And then you can see its eyeball had been replaced with the eyeball creature and like part of its face was torn off or whatever, and it's like, whoa, dude. And let's see, there's this plant. I don't think we've seen what it fully looks like. It's kind of just this big bulb that hangs on the ceiling somewhere, but it has these like plant vines or something that kind of pop out, and it kind of forms almost like a hand and it goes towards people. But it kind of looks more like tentacles than anything plant related. And then there's like the xenomorph that's running around. That's like the most dangerous one because it is actively just attacking the humans that are there at this point. I think there's like a couple others. I think there's supposed to be like 5. But yeah, those, just watching all these like new creatures and stuff is really cool. Definitely nails like the horror vibe and everything. It's going good. Ice Age is still relevant. I don't know how long Ice Age is relevant to this series, and I've been looking ever since I watched the first episode yesterday that it's just kind of become like a meme associated with this, to the point where like I was scrolling Hulu after I finished this episode, like right before I went to record this, and the first Ice Age movie was one of the first things that popped up, and I was kind of considering like, I've seen Ice Age before too, like I grew up with it as well. I was like, should I watch this? Is there a reason Ice Age is being recommended to me by Hulu right now? It just feels kind of weird with it in this show where it's tied to like part of the emotional bond of like Wendy and her brother, so it's like plot significance, but at the same time it's Ice Age. Nothing against Ice Age, it's like a very goofy movie. And the funny thing is, it isn't even like the first Ice Age movie or anything. It's like, I think it's the 4th one actually, because they keep talking about this one line from this like monkey character that isn't even really funny, but it's like a way for Wendy to kind of remind her brother of like who she's actually supposed to be. So they're having like an emotional connection, and it's kind of nice, and then they're talking about Ice Age or whatever, and it's just like, oh, like there's this one shot that was really goofy where Wendy is trying, her brother says something that has to do with a line they always quote from the movie, and she remembers something that Sid the Sloth says, and then she repeats the line back, and the brother's just kind of weirded out because at that point he's like talking to a camera that she hacked or something. But the shot is weird where like Wendy is there and she kind of looks a little sad, and then when she's remembering Sid, he literally appears on screen behind her, but like kind of transparent. It's just a really weird shot. There's actually a lot of references to like what would be like modern day or like the past for us, because not Ice Age, no. Alien's supposed to take like super duper far into the future, like I think the first movie it's supposed to be like 2099. I'm probably not getting that number right, but it's like something like that. Like it's so far in the future. But then with this series specifically, they're making so many reference, like they talk about a baseball game from the 50s at one point in this episode as well. It's supposed to be like things the characters remember from their childhood. I don't know, it's kind of interesting. I mean, some of the other movies do that too. Like I remember there was a song in the first Alien where it was like an older song, or like Prometheus having a bunch of stuff from Lawrence of Arabia, which every time I think about that now I still have to go watch it. But yeah, with Ice Age, it's kind of weird. Every time that pops up in an episode, I feel like I'm going to have to mention it and kind of make fun of it a little. I kind of almost wish it was the first Ice Age movie instead, specifically, that like Wendy and her brother have the nostalgia for, because like I get it's supposed to be like, okay, it's just like one funny line from one specific Ice Age movie, and that's supposed to kind of help connect them or whatever. But I feel like the first movie specifically would have fit better because it always felt kind of more serious and sad to me than the others. I feel like Ice Age as a series, I didn't mean for this to be an Ice Age review, by the way, it's just kind of turning into one, kind of got more wacky as it went on, which I was fine with. I like the one where they go look for the dinosaurs. That one's my favorite. But the first one, you know, it's kind of very simple. It's like the three animals, they're trying to get this weird, creepy baby home. Or not creepy, I just think the Ice Age baby is kind of ugly. And that's it. And it's like a very simple plot and stuff, but it has this theme about family, because it's like found family. And then I still remember there's that one, like, scene where it's showing about what happened to Manny's family and stuff, and it's the whole theme of like choosing your own herd or whatever. And I feel like that the themes of that movie probably could have connected more to like what they're trying to do with Wendy and her brother. I mean, they are related and stuff, and it's more about like reconnecting people rather than like finding a new family together. But I feel like maybe it could have been more, and if you're gonna like specifically pick Ice Age for this, it could have been more meaningful. I don't know. What else? We get to see more of Morrow, the cyborg guy. I think he's the only cyborg we've seen so far. I think he's actually my favorite of the characters so far, because he's still on the ship. I still don't really know what his goals are. I mean, I know his goal for Mother is like, okay, you have to help contain the creatures running around. It's interesting seeing him here. There's this part where he gets cornered by these soldiers and they want to shoot him or something, and because they're like, what are you doing here running around? And he had just captured a xenomorph or something, like he had it in a bag and he was going to take it somewhere, and he's telling the soldiers something like, oh, that thing in there is more dangerous than me. Like, he was actually trying to just get them to leave and not get killed, and then they get killed anyway. And it was kind of interesting because with the first episode, when like his entire crew is dying, like he's purposely letting them die and not trying to help them, even though there's some that he could have saved. And there's this part where he's like turned around and we can see behind him and he has his hands up, and the xenomorph kills all of the soldiers around him immediately, and he opens his eyes and he is like extremely wide-eyed with fear. Like, even he's afraid of like these creatures and stuff. And then I know we've had, of course, like blood and gore and all kinds of crazy stuff with this series, but it still kind of felt like, whoa, he turns around in that same scene and you just see the soldiers' corpses and their blood is like everywhere. There was just something about that. I was just like, damn, you know, like I was thinking like, yeah, the xenomorph really is crazy. I mean, I know I've seen all the movies where they do so many worse things to people and stuff, but I don't know, just something about that. And then one of the kids calls the xenomorph a bear because, you know, they don't know what any of these creatures are. It's their first time seeing any of them. And there's a part where one of the kids is with Wendy and they see like claw marks on the wall, and the kid, I don't think his name was Smee. That's when, because all the like lost boys, quote unquote, they're all named after Peter Pan characters, kind of like how there's Wendy, and then the boy genius guy is supposed to be like their Peter Pan, which I guess that's why he acts so childlike, but he still kind of just creeps me out. But anyway, them calling the xenomorph a bear kind of reminded me of the third movie, where there's a specific character that, you know, because in that prison they don't know what these creatures are, refers to the one xenomorph floating around the queen as a dragon, which I just think that's interesting. Of like, you know, a lot of the characters sometimes in the series just, you know, you don't know what you're dealing with or whatever, so you have to find a way to like put it into terms you understand. And it's true, it's like the xenomorphs do, like the way they hunt and move around and stuff is very like animal like and everything. And then we get the big scene where Wendy finally reunites with her brother, which I didn't think that was gonna be this early on. I mean, it was kind of spoiled for me just because the Hulu descriptions for the episodes, it mentions about things that happen. It doesn't include like names or whatever, but it says like, oh, there's this thing, and it mentions about a reunion, and I'm like, yeah, it has to be between her and her brother. I feel like it's almost too early on. I don't know. I feel like that for something more meaningful, where her goal and the entire reason she's going into that ship is to find her brother, it would have been nice if that happened maybe like a couple of episodes later or something. Just put it off like a little bit more, because like they do really try, especially in this episode, to show like their bonds and stuff. But I feel like I don't care enough about either of them where it's supposed to be like this big reunion. And I thought the kids, like, you know, they're not supposed to tell anybody about what happened. And Wendy's, it's kind of funny actually, she's very obviously wants to tell her brother who she is, and she's like so happy to see him. Not as happy as I would have expected. I mean, I guess that's probably because like her, you know how they're like robots now, their emotions are kind of treated a bit different, because they're like synthesized. I don't know. I mean, if I was a kid that I got separated from my family and then I got to reunite with them again and wasn't sure if I'd ever see them again, I'd probably be a bit more emotional. And then he figures out that they're synthetics, because the kid that's with her is kind of funny, where Wendy's brother Joe, he's a medic, so he's looking, one of them's injured and is looking, and he's like, okay, where's the cut? And the kid's like, there is no cut, there's not even anything red, we're like, it's all white inside, because the synthetics always have like white blood or just like white liquid inside of them, whether it's like sweat or whatever. And he's just kind of like, oh, you're synthetics. Like, even at that point, people still don't like the synthetics, and Wendy's immediately like, oh, we don't like being called that, which I think that's interesting, where even like the hybrids don't like, none of the synthetics like to be called synthetics. I'm surprised she didn't mention about, oh wait, no, I was going to say, I'm surprised she didn't mention the line about like, I prefer the term artificial person myself, and then I remembered, oh yeah, she's technically not actually an artificial person. I mean, she sort of is, but you know, she's like a human that got put in there, so not quite. And then she convinces her brother to go with her, because she's like ordered away to the front of the ship or something, and the other kid's there, and he's blabbing all this stuff, and Wendy's trying to shush him. It's kind of funny, of being like, oh yeah, we're kids, we're synthetics, I'm this age and Wendy's this age. Those aren't even our names. Like, he literally refers to Wendy as just her machine name, and she's trying to shut him up, and then mentions, like, oh, this is Marcy. And Joe's like, oh, Marcy's my sister's name. And the kid's just like, yeah, this is your sister. And she's so pissed. It's funny. I know she's just trying to follow orders or whatever, but I was glad that happened, actually, because sometimes it is kind of hard to watch when it's like one person knows the other person and they can't say anything, and the entire time are just like, just tell them or whatever. So it's so nice to have a character just say it and let the cat out of the bag, and then the plot can like continue. And then it's kind of just explained, because of course he doesn't believe that's his sister, because from his perspective it's like, yeah, there's just this adult synthetic trying to help me or whatever. And it's kind of funny though, because what was I going to say? Like, Wendy's so excited to see her brother and like keeps staring at him and stuff, and you know, he doesn't know who she is. But we find out that her dad let her get taken away. Actually, it was that the boy genius, as she refers to him, which is funny because like boy cadaver is an adult. He's probably like 20 or something. He goes to visit like the kids when they're still in the hospital and says that, oh, I can help you and whatever, even though, you know, he's going to kill them. And her dad let her get taken away. But it also sounded like maybe it was Wendy's choice. I don't know, because there's this whole thing of like the brother wanting to go to like medical school on Mars or something. So then Wendy ends up getting taken away, and it's like supposed to be a secret. And you know, I mean, I feel like the kids were kind of like brainwashed in a sense to believing like that what boy cadaver did to them was a good thing. I mean, I guess it technically is, because their other option was just, okay, you just die from your disease. You know, but I feel like that's a lot of like, you get put into a robot, you're going to be immortal forever and stuff, and you're probably gonna have to watch like everyone around you die. I feel like no matter how old you are, that's like a lot to freaking take in, you know. And the kids are just, the fact that they're just immediately okay with being robots and stuff. I mean, the first episode they were scared of the procedure or whatever, which I don't buy it. I mean, like, their physical bodies died or whatever, but like all that it was like the kids were on a table with the synthetic body they were gonna get put into, and there was some like weird lights or whatever, and then it's like, okay, you're transferred. I don't really believe it's them. I feel like they killed these kids and then like put just their memories, not like their consciousness or anything, into these synthetics. So I feel like it's not like the actual original person's like soul. Like, I feel like if they didn't kill the kids, it probably would have just been something like they're still awake, and then there's like, oh, there's another you inside of this robot and stuff. I don't know, it just looked really shady and like a little too easy, you know, to have this technology to transfer like a human person into a machine and stuff. And the brother does kind of find it shady too. Like, he wasn't allowed to know that his sister, like what happened to his sister, and he says like, yeah, I went to your funeral, you died, and Wendy doesn't even like react to that or anything, and he, I think, just immediately realizes how messed up the situation actually is, and then he starts asking her a bunch of personal questions to try to make sure like, okay, this is her and stuff. And I feel like with a normal adult who's not tied to any of these like corporations, that probably is how you'd react to it, you know, of like what they're doing to these kids. So their reunion isn't played off as like the super big emotional thing. Like, for Wendy it's like super chill, and then for the brother it's like, it's a lot to take in of like, oh, my terminally ill sister's alive, but she's a robot now, and it's like, okay, what are these people doing to her? So then it ends where he's attacked by the xenomorph. I think it's just like one of them running around, and it takes him lower into the ship, and then Wendy, I think, goes to try to rescue him, and it just ends on like a cliffhanger there. That's it. So I'm assuming the third episode would probably start with everyone still in. I'm hoping the rest of the series is just them inside of the ship, but because that's kind of when the series feels the most like alien, like it's supposed to be alien to me. But on the other hand, it is called Alien Earth, so I feel like it would be a little like cheating if, you know, they weren't on Earth, like if they got out of containment and started like trying to fight people, and then it would be these synthetic characters trying to just round them up and whatever. But I don't know. Like I said, I feel like the episodic format throws me off. Like all the parts with the aliens, it feels like Alien. It's cool. Like the dialogue's fine. You have like the spooky corporations, like all the pieces are there. I just don't really feel like I'm connecting with these characters, and there's a lot of times where we're being taken out of the action, where we just, I don't know, watch the kids do stuff or whatever. And I get it, they're like setting up things and stuff, but kind of throws me off. Like Wendy just kind of weirds me out. I don't really know what it is, but I'm fine with like the other kids, but I feel like we don't really know any of them. Like they don't really stand out to me very much from each other. And the brother could be interesting as like the POV of like this medic. He kind of actually reminds me more of like the main characters from Romulus, where it's like these young adults, they're forced to work for like the corporation. In this case for him, it's not Weyland-Yutani though, it's Prodigy, the one that like the boy genius guy started, where the brother even tries to actually quit at one point because he wants to go to like the medical school or whatever, and he's just not allowed to. So I think that's like an interesting perspective, but I also feel like he's kind of just there just for Wendy's character development, to give her something to care about and something to do, because otherwise, you know, if it wasn't for him like being in the ship and her wanting to just rescue him, because it feels more like, okay, she wants to keep him alive rather than like actually going to see him, you know, then she wouldn't have tried to get involved, and I don't think Boy Cadaver would have sent the characters in anyway, and then, you know, we wouldn't have the plot. And then the white-haired synth guy is interesting because he's kind of like our usual sort of creepy synth character that kind of like looks down on humans, and you know how they're usually like fascinated with the aliens and stuff. In this case, he is trying to contain them and is just sort of like following orders, but he also talks in like a very human way. I guess maybe that's also because this is the storyline where like all of the main characters are synthetic, so I guess it would make sense that they all kind of seem a bit more human, except, you know, the ones that are hybrids, obviously. And then the cyborg guy is pretty cool. I want to know more about him, and I want to know more about the other corporations and Miss Yutani, because I feel like we don't get to see her much. But so far with the corporations, it's just kind of like hers so far. And then with Prodigy, I'm already tired of like Boy Cadaver at this point, but I know he's going to remain important because he's like the story's Peter Pan. But it's like they mention about like 3 other corporations. I don't remember what the names of them are, and I'm like, I wonder what those do. I want to know why there's so many corporations and why we never hear about any of them ever again. Besides the thing, of course, of like, you know, this is the newest series, it's impossible to have heard about them again. Hold on, I'm just looking through my notes. No, okay, that's pretty much it. I had a paragraph about like why aren't the hybrid characters and the synthetics and stuff being attacked, and about the creatures and whatever, but I kind of already went over that. But I'm excited to see more of the more of the creatures. I want to know what the plant one looks like, because so far we just see it as like this bulb with tentacles. It's kind of just there. I want it to be like this freaky plant thing, but I like that we're not just getting these like organic creatures. We're getting like plants. We're getting like weird eyeball things. I mean, I do love the xenomorphs. They're always really fun to watch. But it is kind of nice with this series. I think it's one of the things that just kind of keeps me interested to continue watching, is just like the idea of like, okay, there's like all these other creatures, we get to see other things and how they attack people and stuff. It makes it pretty fun. So yeah, I'll keep watching this mostly for that. I mean, it is just the first 2 episodes after all. It'll, you know, once the story probably really gets going, I'm sure I'm probably going to enjoy it more. It's just kind of more of like a weird adjustment period of going from like watching Alien as like these movies, and then having it in this episode format feels weird. But like in terms of turning it into a show, I think they're doing good with it. You know, like it still feels like Alien. I feel like I personally can't say that for every Alien movie. So that's good. All right, bye bye.